Hey everyone, Sycra here, and today I'm going to be doing a critique of one of the forum members over at the Sycra.net forums. Alright, so here we have a character you've drawn, and you've said you're not good with drawing and you mostly do still life or anatomically correct poses and faces, but from time to time you try and create something stylized. And you ask what's bad and what's good. Well, I don't think you're that bad at drawing, but I think the biggest issue lies with you thinking that anatomically correct poses and faces are very different than doing something stylized. And it's something I've heard before where sometimes people will say they are doing stylized stuff as if it's like throw all the rules out the window, you don't need them, you're just going wild and anything goes. And maybe there is a style where that's okay, but for the most part, I would say that's a bad way to think about style. And rather, I would encourage you to think of it like style is the icing on the cake, and the cake is the foundations. So the anatomically correct face, the proportion, the perspective, the anatomy, all these things are the cake, and you want the cake to be done. So if you think of it the way you have it, it's a little bit like your foundation is weak in this image. So maybe the cake is, you got the cake batter, you put it in the oven, and it's not done yet. It's still a liquid. And then you took it out of the oven and you added the style, which is the icing, on top of this cake batter. Now, if you compare that with just someone who just baked a nice cake and didn't put any icing on it, it's gonna lose, because it's like, well, you don't have a cake, you have all this icing, which is the style that you've put on top, but you have no structure beneath it. But if you have, a nice cake and it has no icing, and you have a nice cake and it has icing, probably more people will prefer the cake with icing, unless they have something, maybe they don't like sweet stuff, and yeah, well, then maybe they wouldn't. But, in most cases, people prefer the appeal, but it needs that structure underneath. So what I'm really getting at is you cannot think of it like, well, I'm going to throw everything out the window when it comes to proportions and anatomy. So when it does come to that stuff, perspective is one of the things I'd really encourage you to work on. And the second thing is the anatomy, the anatomy of the skull. Now, the reason I would encourage you to learn perspective is because you're actually sort of doing the figure in perspective anyway. We're looking down on the figure, and so if you could imagine this figure's head encapsulated in a cube, it should fit properly, but this one doesn't. The headband isn't following the form of the skull. So, and there's parts where we're looking down and parts where we're sort of looking up, like the neck isn't in the same view as the rest of the hair and the headband and stuff. So it's going to be more work, but I would encourage you to put style on hold for now, or at least do the style thing, that's fine. But don't ask for critiques on that just yet, because you really need to be working on your foundations. You really need to be working on this anatomy, on your anatomy and anatomically correct head structure. And I've put out some videos that cover that. But yeah, work on that and try not to think of style as anything more than the icing on the cake, and it's the last part of the puzzle. So the first part is all the getting stuff to look correct, and then the style is just, tweaking it at the end, getting rid of some rules that you already need to know. You need to know the rules very well before you get rid of them. And the same applies to anyone who is just, studying or looking at cartoons or manga, and they don't understand reality first. That doesn't mean you need to be able to draw photorealistically, but you need to understand anatomy and proportion and perspective. So, hope that helped, and thanks for watching.